Well, good evening, folks. How's everybody doing tonight? It's Friday Fun Day. At
Yeah.
least it should be.
Friday.
And I couldn't kick off the weekend with any better guest than like everybody's going to know her and love her in the Cold Nights Discord, but and certainly going to know her a lot more than my tiny ass. But we're going to pretend like you don't. So go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience, Feji. Tell them a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello everyone. Good evening. My name is Fedro from Cozy Veggie, and pretty much on my channel, I post content on YouTube, just sharing my love for games, whether they be JRPGs, cozy gaming. Right now, I'm working on more video essays and reviews, and yeah, just on here, just talking about my love for games.
Well, I think that's something we can all share a love of, a little bit of love of games and a little bit of love of alcohol, especially on the weekends. So, we've
Yes,
got
very
two
well
we've
needed.
got two massively contrasting alcohols, and I want to go here. So, a couple of streams ago, I got talking with somebody about Kharkov vodka, and basically we were talking. It was Morrowind. It was the Morrowind stream, and I was telling folks that when if you ever get a chance to go to a Poland or somewhere in Eastern Europe, like they will immediately like destroy like your American conception of what vodka is, like the Belvedere, the Grey Goose, the Kettle One. No
Not your
vodka.
Kirkland Costco brand.
Vodka, well, not just the Kirkland Costco brand. So the way I like to put it to people is, so when you go to your vodka shelf, there's going to be a bottom shelf where all the plastic shit is. And then if you
Yeah.
reach your hand under the shelf, there's going to be a latch, and you pull that latch up, and underneath the actual shelf is where they keep the Kharkov vodka. And so we're talking like under the shelf shit. Like, so typically speaking, my alcohol runs anywhere from moderately high to high end. Not with vodka, because I was absolutely I have a friend Cameron who destroyed that concept for me. He said vodka is supposed to hurt. He's like,
It's supposed to hurt.
Americans have no concept of suffering and pain. Vodka should hurt.
Oh
And so he
God.
said, you drink Kharkov. You drink Kharkov is king. And so I have gone by that anytime I drink vodka. So I'm going to take a quick drink of that while you explain the much better drink that you have that sounds like it just sounds like it hit the spot. It's the perfect drink for something I was thinking about earlier. And we'll tell Chad about that too. But
Yes.
tell them what you're drinking, because you're drinking something
So I have
fabulous. Right?
my
Oh, yeah,
my
there it
drink here. It is a mango soju cocktail. It came from I
is.
was really bored. You good?
Yeah, I'm
The
good.
vodka hit.
Oh, yeah, I'll put hair on your nose.
So I was kind of bored one day and I had a mango and mango seltzer and I had soju and I had mango juice. Like, you know what? Let's just combine those all together, put it into one drink. And it turned out today I don't have a mango seltzer, but I have mango juice and a shot of peach flavored soju. So
Peach flavored
there you
soju.
go.
And now tell me a little bit about soju. What is soju? Because I'm going to check that out like the moment I get
Yeah.
go shopping tomorrow.
Yeah, it's like a Korean take on vodka pretty
Okay.
much. I think with soju it's a lot easier to go down. Doesn't put hair on your chest like vodka does, but it's very dangerous because you can take one shot, like, I'm good, I'm nothing. Couple shots in, the next day you're feeling it. Oh my god, I had that one time during, of course, college days, and my god, I was like, I'm doing great, I'm doing fine, and then the next day, oh my god, I've never been so hungover in my life. It was the worst feeling I've ever had. So me and
Well,
Soju kinda have a love-hate relationship, but we're on good terms right now.
well, it's a weekend. Yeah, it's the best
On
time to
good
be
terms right
on
now.
good terms with it. But I better be careful of that myself. I'm getting up there in years, and I'll tell you, this is one of the few drinks I drink that's actually going to hurt me tomorrow.
No.
I'm a long way from my college years of the what do they call it, the power hour, the shot a minute shit that we did. You'd be listening to the bands of the time.
Right.
Got like fucking chandelier playing, then it'll get interrupted. Shot, shot, shot. Then that's your cue to.
Everybody.
So yeah, it's been man, it brings back good times. So anyway, what we're actually here to talk about. So um, tell me a little bit about your path to gaming, because you've got a pretty interesting story around that. Tell everybody how you got into
Yeah.
the hobby, because I have a pretty standard um 1980s 90s kid story. Basically, I played Super Mario Brothers, and that was my gateway in. What was your gateway into the hobby?
Yeah, so for me, It was on the N64, and it was, Mario Kart, and especially Super
Huh.
Mario 64. I remember going to, like, my cousin's house, and, like, this was my very first introduction or even, like, encounter with gaming. Because at the time this is probably, like, early 2000s at the time. I was really young, baby then, and I never knew what gaming was, and so we went over to my cousin's house, and they pulled it up. I'm like, "Oh, I wanna be a part of this," and at the time, our family didn't have, like, any gaming consoles, so every time we never go to our cousin's house, I would always hog the controller and play
Sure.
it, and then it just became, like, an instant love. But, like, as I grew older, I kind of, like, drifted away from gaming. You know how life happens sometimes, like,
That
work,
100%.
school, so that just kinda happened. We always had, like, gaming consoles, like, we had our Wii, a PS, PlayStation 1 and 2 in the house. It was mainly, like, my brother that played games, and I would just kinda, like, sit and watch and just tag along. But then the pandemic happened and quarantine was a thing, and so I was reaching graduate from college, and I had nothing to do. I had all the time in the world because I was unemployed and I just graduated. The world was shut down, so I was like, "You know what? Why don't I just go pick up a Switch?" And the rest is history, honestly. Ever since I got that Switch, I've been going back to, like, all the games that are coming out recently and going back to games that I missed out, and it's been honestly a great time just being able to, like, re-find, like, my love for gaming all over again.
That's one of the things I tell people all the time is with the Nintendo Switch, like you hear a lot of people that cry about the ports all the time. And you got to
Mhm.
remember, and that's what I tell people, like not everybody had every single one of these generations. A lot of people set out generations. So that's the thing. To me, the Nintendo Switch is full of just about every port's a brand new fucking game to me. It might as well be. And the
Yep,
reason for that is I skipped large swaths of gaming. And it's not that I didn't have access
exactly.
to a Nintendo 64, but basically I was an NES, Sega Genesis, Super Nintendo kid. That was my jam. And
Mhm.
then the 3D gaming came out and everything got ramrodded into 3D. And it was a
Yep.
transition that I didn't quite grasp at the time. I get a little bit more of appreciation for some of those games now, but since in particular, like I love the Star Wars games, Shadows of the Empire, GoldenEye, Perfect Dark were always fun. Um,
Mhm.
but I was always that 2D Mario fan that was always waiting for that for that next 2D. I'm like, okay, well, Mario 64 is a good game. This is pretty cool. I can't wait to see what they do with the next 2D Mario game on the Nintendo 64, having 64 bits.
Mhm.
Yeah, jokes on me there. And I had to wait 18 years for that shit. But anyway, so I largely skipped a lot of the N64. I skipped the entire GameCube generation. So GameCube, PlayStation 2, that whole era. Never had a PlayStation 2 even in the house until much later.
Mhm.
And then the Nintendo Wii came out. And that was kind of my
Yep.
first, that was my soft re-entry into gaming with
Yep, soft launch.
specifically with the with Nintendo Wii and the Wii Sports game. And then
Yep.
later with the Mario Kart game, I kind of had the same thing you did there, only on the Wii.
Mhm.
So Mario Kart Wii, and then the absolute banger that was New Super Mario Brothers Wii.
Yep.
And then the Wii
I
U
think
came out, and I exited again, and I didn't come back till the
yeah.
Switch. So a lot of these games on the Switch, people can say they're ports, but they're brand new to me. And I'm sure you had a similar
Yeah.
experience when you got back in the Switch, having entire generations to pull new games from.
Exactly. The catalog on the Switch is honestly it's wild to me now that hopefully we're hopefully getting that Switch successor soon. The catalog is just gonna get bigger. I just feel like as someone who like us who like maybe had kind of like stepped away from gaming, come back, there's just the possibilities in the games and the catalog is just endless. It's hard to choose where to start, you know?
Yeah, no, I have that problem because I think I'm getting close to 400 physical games on this console. And
It's always growing.
that's
It's
a
always
problem
growing.
in and of itself. Because here's the thing: like, if you've ever looked at a large menu at a restaurant, you know the problem with this.
Yep.
You have that stun lock of indecision. What the hell do I
Uh-huh.
play next? And so that's first the problem. And so my entire channel actually started to try to kick me in the ass to say, hey, instead of just buying all these fucking games, why don't you play some of them? And then, you know,
Right?
as a reward for that, you like to write, so you can tell people about the games you're playing. And so that's kind of how
Mhm.
I got my start on my little project, and it's going well. I've been derailed by Morrowind because Lake Andoram from Tamriel Rebuilt is about to launch an expansion, but I'm gonna be getting back to it. Ironically enough, next thing I'm coming out with is a Space for the Unbound essay.
Ooh.
So
That's a game it's the one I get into because like, I've talked about it many times, but, like, again, the issue of, like, having our backlog, it's so hard to get to games that you want to, but that game in particular looks really cool, and I know that the physical for the North America is coming out next year. Definitely wanna cop that when it does release, for
oh
sure.
shit, see, I already got the Japanese one, but that's okay. But
I
that's
know,
okay.
I just gotta wait. Like, right now, I'm currently on a buying ban, kind of. I tried to keep it to
Smart.
2 months, but I kinda didn't hold up, but I'm gonna go on for next month, October. I'm gonna try not to buy anything because I know that, like, with the Black Friday deals coming up soon, I kinda wanna wait until these games get some discounts and then go ham during then.
I've got to get some kind of Switch content out because coming up in October 29th, Super Mario Wonder is going to come out and it is going
Yeah.
to wreck my fucking world for like the next 3 months. And I'm playing that
That's
day one.
it's
Um,
so hard because I know that Wonder is coming out, and then RPG, I wanna set aside t November's gonna be tough because I have that game I wanna play, Super Mario RPG,
have you
and
ever
then
played
Star
Mario
Ocean.
RPG?
I didn't, I never got the opportunity, so this is
Oh,
why I really
Fajira.
wanna
Oh
play
my
that day
God, you're
one.
gonna love it.
I
You're
know,
gonna
I feel
love
like I
it.
know I'm gonna love it, so that's gonna be, like, my whole personality once that comes out.
No, Mario RPG it is actually, and so what I am told actually is that because Mario RPG, that's old hat for me as an SNES wonk. But
Mhm.
the one that I'm actually when I first saw the Nintendo Direct, that Direct kind of was like to me. But then people,
Yeah.
well, they ended on a Paper Mario. Why would they end on a Paper Mario? And everybody just blew up my like Twitter exploded and they said, "No, Mom, no, Zoo, you've got to." No, this is not just Paper Mario. This is Paper
Mhm.
Mario, the Thousand-Year Door. And so
It's just, like, a lot of people's childhood.
they've got me hyped for this game, and so I'm excited. I'm very excited to try it, and
Mhm.
we'll have to see how that is. But I hear nothing but good about it. So, yeah, that's one I certainly am excited about. But let me show you on this on a Space for the Unbound real quick because there's things I like about it, and there's things I don't like about
Mhm.
it. But
Okay.
one of the things I love about it are two things. First and foremost, it's the setting of this game because Indonesia is a very unique place. There's nowhere else in the world like Indonesia. Okay.
Mhm.
And being set in like a small town in Indonesia in the 1990s is just absolutely my kind of jam.
Yep.
But that's not all. That's not all. Because the other thing that I adore about this, and as a reader, this might perk your ears up a little bit,
We're
is that
listening.
it has a strong basis in magical realism.
Mhm.
That's
Oh,
the
I love
entire
magical realism.
yes, A Thousand Years of Solitude, Midnight's Children, um,
Yes.
Haruhi
Yes, yes, yes.
Suzumiya for people who like their anime. Um,
They're
yep,
animal.
yep, Haruhi Suzumiya for sure.
Yes.
It's magical
Any
realism,
Japanese author there.
and I think magical realism is a almost completely unexplored genre in games. I don't
Yeah,
think we
because I
lean
feel
enough into
like
it.
there's always a lot of fantasy, high fantasy, sci-fi, but, like, magical realism, because I think it's a very subtle way to incorporate a fantastical element without
Yes,
being too overwhelming. Because I can understand fantasy and high fantasy can sometimes kinda go over a lot of people's heads. Totally get it. Yeah, totally understandable. But with magical realism, again, in the name realism, there's a sense of realistic elements that people could still, like, understand and comprehend,
right.
and easier to enjoy.
Well, the magic's present in the world, and
Mhm.
what's so funny about it is everybody. It's not weird to them. They're just like, oh yeah, like
Yeah.
oh, so I've got this
More
book that
accepted.
I've got this book that lets me space dive into people's consciousness. Cool.
Cool.
Like everybody's like, yeah, well, what's fucking strange about that, huh? But and
But no, I
it uses it to tell a really cool narrative. I think you're gonna like it as
yeah,
a
it looks on like,
yeah
the art style looks great too.
as a cozy game fan. I don't think you can. I don't think that'll be a miss for you. The other one
Yes.
that I like cozy games wise that I recently played that I just adored, and part of it was a particularly brutal work week that I took a vacation from while I played this game, and I actually played most
Mhm.
of this game outside. I did that deliberately, and that was a game called A Short Hike. that was
I this game is so
wonderful.
stunning. It's a breath of fresh air. It's like a honestly, I just the thing is with those kind of games, it's like in short hike, it's just like it may just seem super simple to the normal eye, like, what's so great about it? But like the reason
Wonderful.
why cozy games are so great is because they explore about the mundanity of life and in such a beautiful, chilling, and relatable way, you know? It's not like too I don't know. It's just like it's a honestly really great game. It's a really great
Well,
game.
they remind us to get out in nature a little bit more. I mean, a lot of us are trapped in office
Mhm.
jobs. We're constantly we're
Ugh,
never
yeah.
outside, and it takes sometimes it takes a hobby like our video game
Mhm.
to realize like it's literally like that literally you get a boost of happiness by literally just reaching down. Literally, it's a meme at this point. But if you literally
With
just
some
rub
grass.
if you rub dirt in your hands, you'll get a boost um of happiness,
Serotonin.
serotonin. Yes,
Yep.
literally. It's important. It's important to detach yourself from the hustle and the bustle of this machine we built every now and then, and just
Yep.
get back to nature, get back to a more simple way of living. So, hey, Viral Eyes, looks like you made it. Hey, good to see you, man.
No, hello.
So we might be doing a certain secret Morrowind stream that we don't talk about here later on, and you're definitely probably going to want to follow me into that. But I'm glad you made it here because I've got a great guest on. I think you're going to like the talk here. So welcome in. And but yeah, that was one recently I played, and I'll tell you, that's the other thing about my, how taste changes gaming. So I grew up with like the tactile feel of like the arcade style games, like really fast paced
Mhm.
shmups and platformers and action games. If you had told me that in my late 30s that I would literally be playing visual novels and playing a game about hiking and camping and farming, like I probably would have called my younger self a fucking liar. But I gotta tell you, I do have a newfound appreciation for games I probably would have scoffed at. My younger self would have, and
Mhm.
it's kind of cool to see that growth, not only in myself but in the hobby in general. And that kind of leads us to with that video you just put out. I am enthralled by this video you recently, so I want to tell everybody here now: go watch this video if you haven't already, and I actually will link it in my description below her all of her socials. That way you can see the video in particular. Um, it's a lot of things that I talk about, but put in a way that is so succinct that I can't do it justice. But so let's explore the concept a little bit. So tell everybody a little bit about the video I'm talking about and where you were coming from when you put that together.
Yeah, so the recent video came out that dropped today was the importance of indie games and indie game developers in the gaming industry. And the reason why I wanted to discuss it, it's always been on my mind, in the back of my mind, as I've been playing a lot of indie games throughout the past couple of years, and it just made me realize that a lot of indie game developers are honestly really pushing the envelope and creating such innovative and unique gaming experiences that I think AAA games or AAA companies are kind of lacking in that department. I feel like sometimes a lot of AAA games are kind of just caught up with the big flashy lights and the really high quality, frame rate and, super, lifelike looking people that they kinda miss, the uniqueness that gaming brings, and I feel like indie game developers are doing that AAA developers aren't, kinda slacking on, and I wanted to highlight and uh, shed a light on those indie developers and just indie games that need that, true, emphasis that they're really doing they're doing the Lord's work, for us gamers.
100%, 1000%. And to build on that a little bit, like you mentioned that, yeah, like you mentioned they're so focused on high production values and all this other shit and economy models and all the stuff that they put into modern gaming. I'm gonna give you a hypothesis, and I say it's a hypothesis because I can't prove it, but
Mhm.
I don't necessarily know if it's a choice for them at this point. And what I mean by
Yeah.
that is that I don't think that AAA gaming companies could compete level for level on those games that the indie games are capable of making. We've seen this throughout the years. We've seen a steady retreat. I think that the high production values and I think that all of the AAA aesthetics, I think that's a moat that AAA gaming has built for itself so that they don't have to compete with indie games on a gameplay for gameplay basis. So what can we
Mhm.
do that the indie games can't do? Well, we can do the high end production values. Now, what's funny about this is that's actually not working anymore because the indies are also moving upstream and following them upstream through a process that is known as, drumroll please, and everybody get ready to take a shot. I'm about to say it,
Da-da-da-da-da.
market disruption.
Yep.
Are you familiar with the concept of market disruption? I'm certain you are based on that video.
Yeah, in a sense, it's just like when people are kind of like dispersing a lot of products without like putting any thought in the quality of what they're putting out there. And I feel like, especially with AAA companies, I think they kind of pigeonholed themselves in a sense that like they're not I'm not really seeing the bigger picture, but for example, I mentioned in my video how like Final Fantasy 16 came out recently
Right.
and how a lot of fans were up in arms about they kind of took a different route with their combat. And even though or like this direction of it, saying it was just too dark or it's not turn based or it's not my real Final Fantasy. And because I think the people of Square Enix and the team kind of put themselves in the position because ever since I feel like 10, each game has gotten more bigger and more grander. And they kind of haven't had the opportunity to just like, you know what, why don't we just do something different? And when they did do something different, it kind of, I wouldn't say necessarily backfired on them, but like, I don't know. I feel like the fans and the company are kind of at fault for this at the same time, if that makes any sense. Like,
Yeah, yeah,
you cannot
I get what you're saying
You
there for
can't
sure.
like, you can't allow, like, someone to grow if you're so stuck on your, like, always, "Oh, this is not how my game's supposed to look like." Well, maybe it wasn't supposed to be your game. And, like, with especially the Pokemon, how, like, it's literally, like, the same thing over and over and over again. Now they're starting to branch out because they can't do that at the same time. Like, you can't do that over and over again. Like, at some point, people are gonna, like, lose that, like, interest real quick.
I sure hope that happens to Pokemon because it needs to. Because that last game, oh my gosh, oh my gosh,
The
uh,
amount of bugs,
yeah,
like,
yeah,
how can you let something and of course, like, the thing is they knew that they could do it because it is Pokemon, because it still sold a crap ton of money,
yeah,
still sold a
and
crap ton
and
of
and that's on us. That's on us because I said
Yes,
that
exactly.
I told people, and I was actually just talking about this with another person on Liquored Up. That's on us. That's on us. You know, because here's the thing: like, did I still have fun with Scarlet Violet? I did, but
Mhm.
that is not acceptable. And we
It's
really,
not
really need to be vocal of the fact that that's not acceptable. Now, in terms of Final Fantasy 16, I think there's some real I think there's some real fucking animosity building up with the Final Fantasy team against their own fans. And I don't think that's a healthy thing.
yeah.
Did you see Brandon's video on the Final Fantasy 16? Did you happen to see that yet? Just the gems?
Yeah, I thought
Great
that was
video.
such a really, really unique take on it, because like,
It's true though.
oh god, it's like I have to refresh my mind about what was, like, the main part of it, but,
Yeah,
like
essentially they made us the fans the bad guy because we won't let them change Final Fantasy. And here's the thing.
mhm,
I get that frustration. I really do get that frustration. But the problem is, like, the problem, Feji, is when you're dealing with an established IP, you're dealing with established fan expectations. Now, I actually
yep,
think a lot of the Final Fantasy 16 takes are complete dog shit, honestly. People that say this isn't a Final Fantasy game. Well, can you define a Final Fantasy game for me? Because
exactly.
I can't really define it except for to me, Final Fantasy is a hodgepodge of batshit crazy stuff that just happens to be in a JRPG format. I can't really define Final Fantasy. I'll be honest with you.
Mhm.
You can say
Yeah,
chocobos. The first game didn't have fucking chocobos. It had time travel. Ironically enough, I actually think that Harvestella is more Final Fantasy than just about anything they've made recently. That to me is like the epitome of like a Final Fantasy feeling game. So I can't
mhm,
define Final Fantasy, but I can give you the feeling of a Final Fantasy, right? And
yeah,
I'm not going to say that Final Fantasy 16 is not a Final Fantasy game. I think that's a garbage opinion. I don't think until you can define what Final Fantasy actually is, I don't think I reject that notion. What I will say is
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy most of it.
Mhm.
And I didn't enjoy and again, I haven't finished it, so perhaps there's some magic bullet that'll hit me later on if I were to actually play the game. But I stopped playing it and played Bloodborne, which to me is an infinitely better game. But I digress. So I have a real problem, and again, maybe something changes, but I have a real problem with the story of that game. I don't like the way they portrayed the oppression of the magic users. It seems to me
Interesting.
that the magic users, and I can't claim complete credit for this. All of our ideas come from other sources. I mean, nothing is
Mhm.
new under the sun. I'm going to credit
Right.
Stephanie Sterling with this one in particular, but when they pointed out, it's easy to see this is true, and that is the fact that these magic users, which literally the entire goddamn world depends on these magic users, they can't even eat
Mhm.
without us, and yet I'll never forget the moment. Like I went up to a farmer, and this farmer like literally spat in my face and told me, "Why don't you go and kill those monsters? Why don't you do your job?" And literally, my character walks off like, "Okay, boss." Like literally, he's like, "Ugh, "Yeah, I can't let the monsters attack the village. Why? Why not? Why not let them wipe these fucking people out?"
I think what's really interesting about Final Fantasy 16 and how they deal with that is because I think as just humans in general, we're just afraid of things that are either that are too powerful than us. The idea that something could easily take over us, it's like having these magic users as slaves keeps them in control and keeps the balance in their favor. That's pretty much like what I've got from Final Fantasy 16. Like clearly most people think, well, they're the magic users. Why don't they just uproar and just fight for it? I mean, obviously they eventually do that throughout the game. I'm about to
Oh,
spoiler anything,
okay,
but
okay.
I
So,
think it's
okay.
hope I didn't spoil
No, no,
anything.
no. You actually might have reignited my interest because that's my whole thing. Is Clive seems like a yes massa type, and I hate that shit. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, you're just doing these people's bidding when they treat you like shit. Like, kick them in the nuts or
And
something,
put
man.
plus, there's certain side quests, and I know a lot of people like to talk about how the side quests in this game isn't that great, but like towards the later half of the game, the side quests get really, really, really good, and
Okay,
they do add a lot more lore to the game and add more to the like cause as to why Clive and eventually or inevitably wants to like fight
good,
for
good.
people. So like
I'm an underdog fan, man. I don't like to see people abused like that. Like,
yeah,
stand.
and plus it's really like it's plus throughout the world, there's more people that, like, are like, "Wait a minute, this isn't right. I need to do something too." So, like, it may seem all doom and gloom in the beginning, you're like,
Okay,
"What the hell is happening?" But, like, trust me, it gets better. But again,
okay,
I know FF16 is kind of like a divisive one. For me, FF16 was my first Final Fantasy, so I didn't have anything to compare it to in
ah.
terms of the other
Well,
games, so
honestly, the whole thing about it's not a Final Fantasy game. Like, I would honestly challenge anybody to define a specific. It's really hard. It's an active
because
time.
even the creators said themselves that each Final Fantasy game is supposed to bring something different and kind of a wraparound of what it is to them, what a fantasy game is to them. So, like, to send people to say that there's a strict definition when even the creators are like, well, there's not really a distinct what is a Final Fantasy is. It could be whatever they want it to be. So people
100%. Yeah.
it's a really interesting debate about it. But
Yeah.
now that I'm going back to the other one, that's like I think what's really great about Final Fantasy in the sense that it's been a franchise that's been around since what, the '80s?
Yeah.
Um, what's really great about it, there's going to be a Final Fantasy game that you love, and there's gonna be one that you're gonna hate. Like, you can pick and choose and have, like, your own ranking, and that's what's really cool about franchises like that. Like, you don't not every game has to be everyone's favorite. I mean, there's 16 of them. How can every single 16 entry be your favorite game? Like, it doesn't
Oh,
make logical sense.
I think that's a mature take, honestly, and it's a take that I've come into on my own, and it speaks to me actually, because I've had the
Mhm.
same. And I'll tell you where the animosity might come from a little bit from fans, and I know this because I was this fan, but for a different series, and that series was Mario, Metroid, and Zelda. I had three of them.
Mm.
I had an enemy, and my enemy was Nintendo for a long time. And what I mean by that is that I waited 18 goddamn years for an actual 2D Mario game. And when they did give me the 2D Mario game, I loved it, but it was still bop bop music and uninspired graphics and fire world, plains world, desert world, grass world shit. And I said, okay, that's one thing. I now Viralize, I love Mario, I love Metroid, I love Zelda too. But
Mhm.
those are games, Viralize, with a very distinct definition in my head. When I think of Super Mario Brothers, I think of a high-end, almost open-air 2D platformer game. When I think The Legend
Mhm.
of Zelda, I think I think a legendary storytelling engine, so uses legendary storytelling in a dangerous hostile world where you're sticking a sword in shit. When I think of
Hmm.
Metroid, I think of a oppressive, scary alien world that Samus is alone fighting for her life against. And
Right.
it can't be denied that a lot of Nintendo series for many, many years did not share the definition of what I felt these games were, and they suffered in sales for it as well. Um,
Mhm.
in particular, not so much Mario, although Mario got cut in half when it went from 2D to 3D. So until recently, when Mario Odyssey came out, that was a point in my favor. Zelda literally about went off the map. It got outperformed by fucking Dark Souls with Zelda Skyward Sword on a system of 120 million consoles or whatnot.
Right.
It came back from the dead, and then Metroid is trying to come back from the dead. I love Metroid Dread, but 3 million sales, I do think they expected more of that, especially when you look at the macroeconomics. Everybody take a shot. Um, where where the OG Metroid outsold, it's still, and a game from 1986 is still the best performing video game in your series. That's a problem.
Yeah.
And so I understand the frustration of the Final Fantasy fans. The only thing I would tell them is that those have actual gameplay identities, whereas Final Fantasy, I'm not sure what the fuck it's going for, and I've played just about all of them, especially the classics, and even the classic games. There was differentiation, so I don't know. I would have to examine that more. I still don't like the take that, oh, this isn't a Final Fantasy game. But I have to give that another shot, especially given what you've told me, because thematically that was my main problem, and the fact that some of the battles outside of the boss battles, which are amazing, by the way,
Yeah, the boss battles are
but
pretty
the
intense.
standard combat, I literally was falling asleep at times. It didn't help either. And then Clive,
Yeah, I definitely yeah, the combat is definitely it's pretty easy, and I
yeah,
haven't replayed it because it's a pretty like, for me, when it comes to game stories, what matters to me the most, and
mhm.
so it's a really intense story that a lot of people are saying, "Oh, Final Fantasy mode," which is, like, the harder mode, it makes it a lot more, like, the combat more, like, immersive or engaging. Like, I would love to replay it, but, like, I'm emotionally damaged and
Sure.
cannot
Oh,
physically
okay.
replay that game again.
So
But overall, like
let's do a little bit of a chat catch up and see if we can respond to some of these chats, because a ton have come in while we've been talking about that. I always like to kind of keep up on that. So Viralize says, I'm a carpenter, but I'm not gonna lie, I go on a walk through the woods after every Oblivion playthrough, and yes, super excited. Yeah, we may or may not be doing a super secret, maybe borrowing stream after this, but it's a secret to everybody, so we're not going to talk about that right now. But stay tuned after. Maybe follow me after and just check on what I'm doing. You might see, you might or might not see a Morrowind stream. What I love, that's why I love Nintendo. They're a good middle ground between cutting edge and passionately produced. Viralize, I would agree with that completely. In fact, it was
Mhm.
Nintendo who, ironically enough, it was Nintendo Wii that originally gave this proposition to the industry. Let's wind the clocks back to 2006, okay, 2005. And the
Mhm.
industry is heading toward the HD era. It's the dawn of the HD era. That means that all the games that were rendered in 3D before are going to have to be rendered in HD, every polygon, every background, all rendered in HD. Nintendo saw the writing on the wall and saw that video games weren't really growing outside of the macroeconomic trends going upward. But it's
Mhm.
2005. What the hell happens if the macroeconomic trends go in reverse? Then gaming would also inevitably decline with the macroeconomic trends. So Nintendo offered a proposition to the games industry. It could continue to do what it's doing and enter decline at a time when it really couldn't afford it, with the high-end HD budgets just eating everybody's lunch, or we could get these budgets under control and, more importantly, bring more people into the hobby. and bring more people into gaming. That was the revolution. That was the Nintendo Wii. That's why it was codenamed the
Mhm.
Revolution. It was a revolutionary way. It was a blue ocean disruptive innovation strategy to bring more players into this hobby rather than just try to seek the young adult males that had been gaming's bread and butter since the ad blitzes of the 80s and 90s.
Yeah,
This
like, my
prop,
parents, they don't care. They didn't
yeah,
care about games, but as soon as we busted out that Wii, they're on that by the TV with their Wii
amen.
remotes ready to play. So, like, I mean, because of that, PlayStation or Sony and Microsoft made their own versions of the Wii remote, which obviously did not take off.
Yeah, the economic birdman. Yeah,
Yep. They
they saw
tried.
the birds flying and they decided to strap feathers with wax to their arms and flap their arms really hard. How'd that work out?
That's what Yeah, same with what Sony's doing it again with the remote play. It's
That's all
like,
Sony
you
does.
it doesn't make any sense.
That's
Like,
all
I
Sony does.
understand for some people it'd work, but, like, you have a good idea. It's like you're almost there. You're almost there, and then they still fumble the
Well,
bag.
essentially, sustaining innovations only matter to the people who are already invested in the hobby, and the only people invested in the hobby at
Mhm.
the turn of that year were a largely young adult male demographic. Now, this is before the mobile game
Yeah.
explosion with Angry Birds. This was before the Wii showed up and brought a whole bunch of new people into the hobby. But here's the narrative that gets lost because looking now, gaming's doing pretty well. But at the time, that proposition was rejected by the larger games industry. They didn't want to make
Mhm.
games for normal people. They didn't want to make games to bring in new customers. They decided they decided to put their shit on the Nintendo Wii, and oh, these dumb fuck casual gamers will come in and they'll buy our shit games on the Wii at full price, and we'll use that to fund our super expensive HD games. What actually happened is all that sweet casual. I was there. What actually happened
Mhm.
was all that sweet casual money disappeared, and they got stuck with the bill. And what ended up happening is in 2008 hit, and we had over 250 game development studios go out of fucking business. That's what happened. So
Yeah.
it broke my heart to watch that happen. And then what broke my heart even more is that Nintendo also bought into the social proof, made the Wii U, and joined them.
Yeah, that Wii U, it's so interesting because I was really all about the Wii when it came out, and then the Wii
Me too.
U came out, and then I think I would for like I can say this, and I feel like a lot of people also. To me, when the Wii U came out, I honestly thought it was just another accessory to the Wii because the Wii had so many accessories to it. It's like, well, I don't really need to buy this. I already have my Wii. It's working
Right.
fine. It's not broken. Why do
Yeah,
I
the
need a Wii
marketing was
U?
shit
It was
on the
horrible.
Wii
So
U.
like,
Sorry.
no one cared about it. So like, of course, it wasn't gonna do well, and it obviously did not do well, and that's why they had to make the switch because 'cause they're like, "We need to make our money back
Hmm.
because that was a fail of a console."
So Bad Belmont's in the house. What's going on, Belmont? Welcome
Hello,
in.
Belmont.
Glad you could join us. He was actually the guest last night. So yeah, so hopefully you got a little bit of that piss punch or whatever it was that it was not piss. I promise everybody. He said it was actually pretty decent, but he
Nice.
had it in a water bottle and it looked yellow. So I kind of laughed and joked and said it's like piss punch. But so then Viralize says I really loved Arceus. I liked what I played of Arceus. I need to get back into it. I need to get back into playing some kind of fucking Switch games. I am a Switch channel. At some point, I will do that. I promise. So,
I know
Nish,
pa your face is in my backlog.
Nish Quick Pops is in here. Another friend of the channel.
Hey!
What's going on, Nish? Yeah, having a great stream so far. It's been a great. He's actually playing Final Fantasy 16 now. How you liking
Yes,
it, Nish? You'll have to put in the chats later on down how you like that.
we've been
Um,
talking about it, and, like, that game like, some of the boss fights in that game are top tier, like, I still think about them till this day. They're wild. They're
so
so
Nish
wild.
and Nish has a question. How do you think the Final Fantasy discourse is similar to the modern Zelda discourse? You want to take that first, and then I'll go.
What's interesting, I think for me, I never really actually played a lot of Zelda games when I was
Sure.
younger. Like whatever like my brother was playing, I was playing. So if he wasn't playing Zelda, I wasn't playing Zelda. And so it's really interesting going back and like playing Zelda for the first time because I played Breath of the Wild this year
Oh yeah.
and I want to go back and play the other games to see how they compare. Because I know that when Breath of the Wild came out, it was like a very revolutionary thing. And I can only imagine that a lot of fans who were like hardcore Zelda fans may have kind of been apprehensive when it came out because Zelda Breath of the Wild just specifically is such a, like, huge taking of a game. Like, it's so massive. Even when I was playing it, I was, like, so overwhelmed at times because it's so open. Like, that game is so open. It's
It's the
a little
real
too
deal.
open.
It's the
It's
real deal.
so
It's a
wild.
return to original Zelda's roots. And that's how I
Yeah.
would answer that question, Nish. I actually don't think the two discourses are similar at all. And the reason I would say that is because with Zelda, that's a franchise that has a very, very defined couple of gameplay identities. The first
Mhm.
is old school fans like me who define Zelda as a action adventure and action RPG. And the reason I define it that way is because that's how Nintendo defined it in their Nintendo Fan Club magazine back in 1988 when they called it the best of both worlds. The strengths of both, the weaknesses of neither. It's both it has the complexity and large world of a computer RPG, a PC RPG, with the tactile arcade combat of an action game. So it was the best of both the arcade and the PC to do something only a game on a console could do. You couldn't have a long game like that on the arcade. It takes too long to play. You couldn't have the tactile feel of the combat on the PC because PC games at the time, this is way before mouse. This is way before any joysticks even on PC. This is keyboard shit back in the day. This is input output, but you could do it on consoles. And so Zelda was one of the first it was the dawn of console games. And to many, it defined what a console game was. So you've got that definition. Then you have the Anuma go fetch a fish for a cat who then take the cat's fish to the evil looking baby who will open a store. And then you got to run an errand for the store. And you've got chore time Zelda, and you've got badass legendary hero Zelda. So you've got two gameplay definitions that most fans fall into camp A, and you've got still a few million that fall into camp B. And there's a fight between those. Same with Mario, I would say. You've got 3D Mario fans and you've got 2D Mario fans, and you've got two very defined camps. And anytime Nintendo deviates from those camps, like with the 3D games, they get their ass punched in. Like literally, it's just like you've got 2D fans saying I hate this, and 3D fans saying I hate this. Um, with Final Fantasy, I don't think there is a consensus on a gameplay identity aside from it's a JRPG. So in other words, it's an
Mm.
ultimate derivative, which that describes every fucking RPG ever. So I actually don't think the discourses are at all similar, but I think that's a good question. And I'd be willing to hear what you think as well. I'm always willing to hear other opinions on things because it's okay to be wrong. Maybe I'm wrong. Then we've got the new ones weren't what I wanted, but I think they're okay. I prefer turn-based combat. Yeah, a lot of people feel that way for sure. Um, and Nish did answer the question. Said it's good, although it's not my personal game of the year. It's still a lot of fun, better than I thought it would be, to be honest. And he says I compare it to Zelda since both franchises changed drastically with Breath of the Wild and Final Fantasy 16. I would
Mm.
argue that Breath of the Wild was not a drastic change. I would argue Breath of the Wild is a return to form. Breath of the Wild is the first time we saw the return of open, dangerous, dark fantasy Zelda since the OG Zelda games. So,
Was Skyward Sword the last Zelda game before Breath of the Wild, or, was there something else that came out before, like, main Zelda game?
yeah, Skyward Sword was the game that almost crashed a franchise. We don't talk about Skyward
Yeah.
Sword here, and it knows what it did. It knows what it did. So, but yeah, to be not smart ass, yeah, that game, that game absolutely crashed the franchise. Although for a different take, again, it's okay to be wrong. Whether it's me or whether you think I'm wrong or you think Nish is wrong, Nish has a terrific video that will actually argue that Skyward Sword was a good game, and I would direct everybody to Nish Quick's video on that because it is a very
Yes,
well done
please
video,
go.
100%. Um, and then you can make up your own mind, and also just play the game. You can't shit talk the game until you actually play it. So
Yes, that's why also just in general, like, when it comes, like, it's kinda make off tangent, but when it comes, like, to reviews, take them with a grain of salt. What I may
100%.
say about a game may be completely different to another person. Like,
Yeah,
I used to get kinda caught up with, like, "Oh, a majority of people don't like it, then I guess I won't play it." But, like,
sure.
I need to make that decision for myself. If
Social
it's
proof
good,
is
if it's
strong, man.
good.
Social proof is a
Mhm.
strong force, for sure. But yeah, ultimately, I mean, there's one of my favorite games that I've played on the Switch, and the game is absolute dog shit of a game, and that is it's called Deadly Premonition. The game sucks.
Ooh.
That game is a piece of shit. but I love it. I love it. Like that game, I think it was made to be bad. Honestly, like the actual game, the game itself is a bad game. I can't even tell you how bad this fucking game is, but
But you still found some love into it. You
I
found
love
something.
that game to death. I love its quirkiness. I love its homage to Twin Peaks, even ham-fisted as it is. I love the fact that I'm an FBI agent that goes place to place on a skateboard because his car's broke. Like it's such a weird fucking game, and it's such a bad game, but I love it. I 100% love that game. I had Breath of the Wild in mind. It was definitely a game changer. No, it wasn't viral. It wasn't a game changer. It really wasn't. It's only a game changer because you're all used to the Zelda that's not good. And so the Zelda that's good comes back and it just blows everybody's minds out of the back of their heads. I promise you, if you play OG Zelda, if you play Zelda 2, or even A Link to the Past, more limited, you're going to get a very similar feeling. It's just that on a massive scale.
Mhm.
It's just the scale that's changed. But the soul of OG Zelda is alive and well in Breath of the Wild. I will fight anybody on that, and anybody can feel free to come on the show. Anybody, I'll have that talk with you. We'll chew that. We'll have that chin wag. So Belmont says, nice. I'm interested in that game because the Devil May Cry battle director worked on the combat. So combat is the combat, and that's the thing. Like anybody who says Final Fantasy 16 is a bad game, it's okay to be wrong. It's not a bad game.
It's like collectively, like, it's like a solid game. It's solid.
Yeah,
Like, there's
because
nothing to, like, it's not doing anything, like, super, like, mind changing or anything, but it's still a solid game at the end of the
and
day.
that's the other thing about reviews. There's actually two parts to my review. One, how is the game itself? Again, like Deadly Premonition sucks. What do I feel about the game? Love it.
Mhm.
So with Final Fantasy, it's kind of the opposite. I would say the game itself is a quality game. There's nothing there that is badly done. Nothing. It is a very well done game that I just didn't care for my experience with it. Although
Mhm.
I think you have talked me into maybe giving that a second look at some point.
Please
So
do.
I will at some point, definitely. And then Viral says Final Fantasy has always been kind of unique per title. I don't think they retcon very much either. Yeah, and he says
Yeah.
I love Mario, I love Metroid, I love Zelda. Nintendo for the biggest win. Yes, with the Switch right now, absolutely. There's
Yep.
nothing the best system ever fucking made.
Like,
Um,
honestly, it's gotten me back into gaming again. Like, if you were to tell me, like, what, I don't know, like 3 or 4 years ago, "Oh, yeah, you're gonna, like, get back into gaming and do all this," and, like, I would laugh in your face, because like,
so
I
good.
didn't, like, have the I didn't the attachment, but the Switch, it's kinda like the Wii in a sense where it gets people who you wouldn't think would go into gaming. Like, everyone like, in my household, we have, like, 3 different Switches because it's
Right.
just such a, like, accessible console that anyone can play, and people can enjoy at any time. Like, it's just convenient. Like, when I was working full time, I would literally go on my breaks, my lunch breaks, just pop out my Switch real quick, do a quick little session, and then go back into the office and do whatever I need to do because
Hmm.
it's just so convenient. I spend most of my time majority of my like, the games that I could, like, play through this year was on my Switch.
Oh yeah, me too. Like aside from when I'm playing like Morrowind, which has just got me right now, but my main gaming is all done on the Switch. I love it to death. It's great for travel when I travel for work, which is frequent. It's great for when there's not so much. Yeah, it's for real. It's fantastic.
Mhm.
My favorite system of all time. It's got cards. It's got cards, man. It's got cards.
Yep.
The physical collect, it's so strong of a draw for collecting physical. So Belmont says
Yes.
Castlevania is also a series that's undergone many different gameplay identities over the years as well, and I would argue equally successful, although much more niche than like a Final Fantasy. But Castlevania, yeah, really, it's got more of an aesthetic identity as a gothic castle monster mash horror game, like
Mhm.
action. Yeah, for real. As long as you stay in that, I think it could be a JRPG. And I think a Castlevania JRPG sounds pretty lit, honestly.
That would be really cool.
I'd play it.
I'd play it. I'd be down for that.
Then Final Fantasy is very weird. They don't have a distinct gameplay or genre other than it's Japanese. I think you just hit the nail on the head, Viralize. It is certainly an import of, and I'll tell you what it is actually. Final Fantasy was a lot of our first. look at some of the Eastern storytelling of like the Indian, the Persian, the Chinese, and the Japanese storytelling traditions, which was really cool. And there's a lot of really cool things, like Gilgamesh is in the fucking games, for fuck's sake. Like, there's
Mhm.
some really cool stuff there too. I need the Morrowind stream. We don't talk about the Morrowind stream here. I don't. What Morrowind stream? Maybe a little later. Maybe a little bit later tonight. There might be something if you check. We don't talk about that here though. I don't know what that is. Yeah. What? Why? So you got me here. So the last entry to the Castlevania was supposed to be a new franchise. Viral says, and publishers suggested they put Castlevania over it, and they did. And I know it's just my opinion, but it let me down. Oh, okay. Yeah, and he says I knew it.
Aw.
It was, yeah, Lords of Shadow was supposed to be something else. Now I 100% understand. Lords of Shadow 2, yeah, I've heard nothing but bad about this, like 100%. Um, Lords of Shadow was a huge, as a whole, was a huge disappointment, yeah, especially the second game, from what I gather.
That's
Um,
always just such a sad thing when, like, you're super hyped up for something and then it kinda lets you down.
right.
Bummer.
Um, and then Viral says, I love 3D and 2D Mario, to be honest. Mario is the GOAT. I've come to love Mario Odyssey, and it's going to have me, and eventually I'm going to have to play those other fucking 3D games. So I'm going to have to play 64, Sunshine, and Galaxy, because I've got them on a cart, and they need a review.
Galaxy, you have to play.
Okay.
I played that on the
Okay.
Wii when it came out, and it's
Okay.
it's so good. No, it's really good.
So,
Both 1 and 2 are like really good. They're like on my
okay.
top 5
Well,
Mario games.
now
They're
that I
really
have
good.
shed my 3D Mario bigotry after Odyssey, I might, yeah, we'll definitely give it a whirl for sure. Now that, and see, that's what I was gonna say, and we got on this long ass old man rant tangent. But basically, what I'm saying is, I think that some of the animosity is the fact that they haven't had a game like they wanted, like the classical turn-based Final Fantasy, in literally a decade.
Yeah.
When I was waiting 18 years for 2D Mario, I built up some fucking animosity toward 3D Mario. Like literally, at a certain point as a fan, you're like, "Fuck these people. They don't want to make what I want to
Yeah.
make. Fuck them. I just won't play their shit anymore." And you get to that point. I got to that point with all three, Mario, Metroid, and Zelda. When Other M came out, I literally said I was done. I was fucking done with Nintendo after that, because they killed my favorite fucking franchise.
Aw.
But but then we got Dread out of the deal. So it just, yeah,
And hopefully
my
4's somewhere in the future,
keep
in the near
Keep
future.
Sakamoto as far away from it as possible, please. Keep him and his weird um Samus Aran as a bimbo ninja with daddy issues. Please keep that shit far away. Samus, you know what Samus is? Samus is Burrito Mart. Samus is the
Mm.
fairy queen. Samus is Hua Mulan. Samus is that
Um,
legendary image of that female warrior pulling her helmet off to let her hair fall over the armor. That's what Samus is. Samus is the suit. I
yep.
don't want to see Samus as a bimbo ninja with daddy issues and mommy issues. I don't want to see that shit. That's not who Samus is. Samus is a badass intergalactic bounty hunter that genocided an entire species of Metroids, and then
It's like, done.
took that little fucker and dropped him off to be experimented on. That's who Samus Aran is. I don't want to hear this shit about, oh, she's this intergalactic hero. No, Samus Aran is a killer hired to do some wet work, baby, and we like her. So
Kinda reminds me of how, like, people are kind of like like, kind of like indecisive of, like, the new Lara Croft. I don't know if you played the new Lara Croft Tomb Raider games, but a lot of
I've played a little bit of the first one and I liked it, because it went into the
yeah.
mythological lore of like Himiko, the Sun Queen, and shit. That was cool.
Mhm.
Haven't played the other ones though.
They're really good. I honestly
Okay.
like, I've, like, played a little bit of the old ones and I played the recent ones, and, like, I think what's interesting, it's a fresh new take on Lara Croft because, like, the old, like, 2000s, 90s Lara Croft was a badass, gave no Fs, kind of like she was a bitch, but the more recent one, she's more of, like, a subdued, kind of, like, more vulnerable, kinda more naive compared to the other one, and a lot of people are like, "She's too emotional." It's like, well, if you're like especially with the first game, like, if you're gonna kill someone the first time, you're not gonna be like, "Yeah, I'm ready to kill." Like, it's a lot to process, you know?
Right. Yeah.
So
Absolutely. 100%.
so, yeah. It's like, you need to relax. Like, if you were in that position, I think you'd probably be pretty distraught as well, because
Right.
I know I
Well,
would.
Yeah, no doubt. So I played Deadly Premonition. I love Deadly Premonition. Rad Bash. Hey, welcome to the stream, Rad Bash. Glad you're here. And viralized
Oh,
in responses. I played Deadly Premonition with my buddy after playing Battle Crab on the Switch. We had a laugh and a blast. Deadly Premonition is a B movie cheese in video game form, and I fucking love it. Me too, Belmont. That's
love
what I'm saying.
that.
Um, I played every Zelda, even Zelda 2. Breath of the Wild was a game changer for me. I can see that on scope again, but again, you're aware, Viralize, that they literally built Breath of the Wild using a modified Legend of Zelda 1 engine. That was actually the start of that game. Like, that's how they built Breath of the Wild. So Breath of the Wild absolutely has the soul of old Zelda. I just love the music, the atmosphere. It gave me all the things I wanted. Yeah, it gave you that old 8-bit Hyrule, but it brought it into the new era in the most gorgeous way possible. 100%. I hope Tears of the Kingdom can hold up to it. I surely do. OJ says it does, so I'm gonna take him at his word on that. But we will see. Again, I'm still a little skeptical of Team Enuma. He burnt me for years with his can't beat the Octo Rock's ass. Real story. Couldn't beat the Octo. The lead on Legend of Zelda can't even beat the Octo Rocks in the Legend of Zelda 1.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Actual real thing. That's
It's
real.
like
You
it's too
can
tough
look it
for
up.
me.
You can look it up. He said, "Yeah, I can't beat the Octoroks because it was this challenge-based gameplay. So I would just go to the screen, I would die over and over again. So I realized this was not the kind of game I would want to make. So what kind of game would I like to make? That would be point and click PC adventure games because these games don't require traditional gaming skills. So this seems like the game I would very much like to make. That's like an actual quote, and that's the guy they put in charge of Zelda.
I mean, and it turned
Sounds
out all
right.
right, kind of.
It
Breath
took
of the
him.
Wild.
It took him 18 years, took him almost 20 years, but if we
They
got
got working.
Breath of the Wild out of all that suffering, it was worth
You
it.
gotta let him cook. You gotta let him cook.
I guess he, you know what? If he can do the magic again with Tears of the Kingdom, I will take back every nasty thing I've said about the guy, and believe me, I've said a lot. So now it's let's see I'm not saying it's the best game ever, but I love it. Yeah, it's pretty close to being it. I think it's arguable for sure. I got news for y'all. There's a fan game made an RPG maker called Castlevania: The Last Belmont. That's basically a turn-based RPG. Link me that shit. Link me that shit, Belmont.
I would love to know.
Galaxy is amazing. Okay, yeah. Other M
Yes.
was ass. Metroid deserved better. Yeah, Other M was worse than Other M. About ended fucking Metroid. It might still have. We don't know yet. We do not know yet.
But
Um,
4 is still it's
Four
a
is
kind
up in
of
the air, and
it's such a mystery, that one.
Dread sold 3 million copies in 2023, or OG Zelda in 1986 sold 2.73 million. Do the population growth.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a decline. That's a huge decline. It's a huge
Yeah.
decline. Um, my favorite is definitely Link to the Past, most beautiful sound and design. Yeah, Link to the Past is as a Super Nintendo fan, Link to the Past is hard to argue with. I perfectly acceptable opinion. And then Belmont's going to link both of us now, so he's going to send that Belmont. Yeah, I wanted to play that shit. So all right, so now that the chat is done hijacking my fucking stream, thank you, by the way, guys. That's awesome. Awesome stuff.
Yes.
Awesome questions. Love it. Just giving you shit. But I want to get back to your awesome video. And again, everybody go watch this video that we're talking about. It's the video about indie games and their disruptive impact on the industry. The other thing that I brought up, and that was the epiphany for me, was how you put this in your video, is the fact that the mind blower Tetris was the first indie game, guys. Indie games aren't some brand new fucking thing that Microsoft invented with the Xbox 360 in their indie games initiative. At one time, id Software was an indie game company. At one time, Origin Systems, who made fucking Ultima, was an indie game system. It was Richard Garriott in his parents' garage. His parents were astronauts, by the way. Cool people. Indie games have always been here. If you look at one of my favorite examples of how indie games spread, it's a wonderful example, is if you look at the way that Command and Conquer. So Command and Conquer Red Alert had came with an extra disc. The indie scene in the 1990s was all about shareware. Warcraft allowed spawning. So basically, you would buy Warcraft, and then other people that you were in network to network play could also play Warcraft. It would spawn a copy of the game on their PC, and that's how they were able to disrupt the market and get an edge on the AAA games at the time. Now, games like Breath of the Wild, I want to throw a bone to everybody here because that's the other thing I wanted to add to that was the fact that I feel like the new moat is open world games because you're
Yeah,
starting to see indies move upstream into those more those high fidelity graphical games. You're starting to see inroads into that now. So eventually, the indie games, because tools like Unity and Godot, and you're going to start to see better and better output from indie game makers. So eventually that's not going to cut it either. And again, I don't think that the triple A's can actually compete with indie games, which is why they're all doing open world games because the budget is insane for those. And that's the
mhm.
new moat around triple A gaming. It's not that they like making open world games. It's that open world games are the only games that have no competition from indie studios. And I think
That's the
that's why they've
truth.
all retreated there. So, and that's the thing. Like, that's what I mean by like when I talk about Phil Spencer. Phil Spencer, the president of Microsoft Games Division, just gave a speech, and I think he was actually very incorrect about that when he talks
Mm,
about market disruption, because he says that the you can tell the future of the games industry by studying the history of the movie industry. Based on what, dude? They're both entertainment industries, but why would an interactive entertainment medium which uses cutting edge computer technology follow the coattails of Hollywood?
yep,
The fact that the Wii succeeded despite the HD twins, that shows me that the cinematic history is not gaming's destiny. I think that in order to look at gaming's destiny, you need to follow the indie games. I think that's going to show you where gaming's ultimately going. But what do you think?
yeah. Honestly, I think with AAA companies, at the end of the day, they wanna do what's gonna make them the most money, and if they think that sticking to the safe option of doing all these open world games or doing something that they've done for years is what's gonna I mean, it does bring them a good amount of money, but,
Sure.
like, as a consumer, as us gamers, we want something that's gonna be different than the other 10 other games that are just like that other one, you know? Like, all the games that have come out this past year that have been amazing, like Sea of Stars, which is from an indie team, that's bringing us kind of a refresh take on old SNES style games, or cozy games like Fae Farm, which is doing a no refresh take on the farming sim element, or just indie game developers are just have that room to just explore and do other ideas that AAA game companies are too scared to honestly do, if I'm being honest. I think that triple indie game developers are just also just they also I feel like with indie game developers, I think it's because they are gamers themselves at the end of the day. They, like, understand where we come from and what we want out of a good game, and they execute that so well and bringing in really cool and fresh ideas, like, emphasis on the very fresh ideas.
100%. Very well said. I think that one of the things that people have to remember too is it's not just the tools it's not just the tools and the means of production that are being more liberatory in terms of making games. It's not just that there's
Mhm.
a digital distribution model that allows you to literally hire contractors. You can program one person can program a fucking game and then hire the art assets or the sound. Look what they did. They reached out to the Chrono Trigger music
Yeah,
and got him
for Sea Stars.
yes, got him to come do the game. So not only is that happening, but what's also changing is, it used to be that the old way of making a video game was that you would go out and have adventures in real life and that would inspire your art. It's the same reason why
Mhm.
Herman Melville got on a fucking whaling boat 3 times, which was insane back in the 1800s. You did one whaling vessel and you came back and you cashed in and you did what you could with that money, but you got another job because it was so fucking dangerous back then. Herman Melville, in order to write his book, crewed a whaling vessel 3 times. And that's what led to Moby
Wow.
Dick, for example. Or look at Ernest Hemingway in terms of the his experience in war that led to some of his stories, his better stories. Look at somebody like Gabriel Marquez with A Thousand Years of Solitude, and his experience during his formative years and how that influenced A Thousand Years of Solitude.
Mhm.
Look at an author like Achibe and his tale of toxic masculinity and Things Fall Apart, and how he was directly inspired by the environment he came from.
Ugh,
It used to be
Yep.
that used to be the way that art was made. But now it's not often that you get to be there for the birth of a new medium of entertainment. None of us were here
Yeah.
when books were born into existence. None of us were here when the tribes first played their first drums and first used their first whistles. A lot of us were here for close to the dawn of video games. Paul Gill
Mhm.
Network said it best. Very few people get to be present for the birth of a new medium of entertainment. We did. We grew up on video games. And so now you
Mhm.
have video gamers who played games they loved growing up and having access to a more liberated set of means of production and tools to make these
Mhm.
games. And so not only is there more tools available to the indie developers and to into video people who want to get into game design in general, but there's more people interested in getting into game design. And
Yep.
these people are fueling them. It's fueling an indie revolution the likes we've never seen before. I think
Yeah.
Phil Spencer and Microsoft were wrong in 2007, and I think they're just as wrong today. Instead of looking
Yeah.
at movie industry, why not look closer at the game industry and indie games, because to me, ultimately at the end of the day, indie games to me are almost a populist revolt of gamers against AAA games. If these AAA games were so goddamn good, there would be no desire to make all these indie games. Essentially, what we have is people rejecting the AAA games and saying, if you're not going to make what we want, we'll
Mhm.
make it ourselves. And I think that's a lot of what's happening with the indie studios.
Exactly.
I also love the fact that more and more people are getting into game development and telling more and more types of stories. One thing you hit on really in that
Yes.
video is the diversity, and kind of explain to chat why that you think that the diversification of the games industry and of gamers is important to you, because I think that's a message that you and I both share.
Yeah, I honestly think the reason why diversity is so important is because one, we get to tell more stories of other cultures, communities, and backgrounds more. And it can honestly teach us a lot more about other people as well. I think that's super important to be able to learn more about those communities and learn about other people's stories. Like a game that I bring up in my videos Vemba, which is about an immigrant family who goes off to Canada and to learn about their struggles and the sacrifices that they have to make as a family. And that is a story that resonates with me because I grew up in an immigrant family who came to the States with nothing. And through food, we was able to meet other people and to just have that found love. Just being able to know that indie game developers are taking that chance to tell stories about a wide variety of people rather than such a select few is honestly eye-opening, it's refreshing, and it allows other people to feel like, "Okay, I feel like I can see myself in this," and that's honestly a beautiful thing. And honestly, just being able to allow people, like you mentioned earlier about how, like, people who've played games and come back to it, like, the game that I played this year was Kenna the Bridge Spirits, and it's from a small indie team called Ember Labs, and this was their very first game, and they are actually worked with Pixar before, and you could definitely see it in their work because it
No
looks
shit.
like Pixar film, but in a game. It was probably one of my most stunning games I played on the PS5, but it's a small studio, it's a very small game, it was, like, 12 hours, but obviously, it's their first game, they didn't have, like, the budget, but, like, it was a pretty massive game for a small studio and it being it for their first game, but it was just about a girl trying to bridge literally take spirits and help them go on to the other world, and they got inspiration from games like Zelda, especially with Majora's Mask, and kind of and, like, grew from that, and I was so enamored by that game and being able to, like, okay, this is their first game, and they're doing that with the limited tools that they have. Imagine what they would happen if they had more pretend like more tools and access. It's just indie games are really just like and I'm just really passionate about it because they are really honestly people who are pushing the envelope for a wide variety of people and communities and cultures, and it's a beautiful thing to see.
I agree 100%. So you always have it anyways. Real quick, chat before I get on my old man speech here. So viralizes at the end of the day, indie games tend to be a lot more hardy. Lack of pandering helps. 100%. They
Mhm.
genuinely have stories they want to tell, and they're not super concerned with a board of directors breathing down their neck or shareholders or
Yeah, they
100%.
don't have that
Man.
pressures.
Yeah. And then Paul Gill Network, welcome aboard, man. Actually, we were just talking about you, man, and talking about how that you had that great comment about how it's not often you can be present for the birth of an entertainment. We were just talking about that, man.
Mhm.
Great to see you on board. And Paul Gale Network says it's great seeing a wide variety of games hitting the market these days. Yeah, Paul, it's important, man. And that's what I want to say is it's important for two reasons. I remember being that lone person screaming for the industry, just begging them, literally on my knees, begging the games industry to take up the Wii proposition. Let's expand this hobby. Let's get
Mhm.
more people into this hobby, more customers, more people making games. Let's scale back some of these AAA budgets, especially as we go into macroeconomic decline. Let's make this hobby viable for people that don't have the money for a $600, $700 game system. Let's do it. Let's bring people into the hobby that aren't just young adult males, because that is also again, just in pure business terms, young adult men are going to be the ones who get hit the hardest in any economic downturn. It always happens if you look at the statistics. So, what I would say, you always are going to have some semblance of people who gatekeep and say, well, that's not a real game. That's not real gamers. Get the
Hear that
hell
all the
out of
time with cozy gaming. All
I'm
the
sure. I'm
time.
sure you do. And here's what I would say to those people. From and this is an old man talking here. I've seen gaming in its decline. I've witnessed a gaming crash. I've seen something that was damn close in 2008. What I would tell you, and I'm gonna try to reason with you. I understand that's not always possible because some of these people in particular that make videos are just in it for clicks, and that's why they do this.
Mhm.
So to just kind of throw that out there. But to the people who actually want to have a conversation, come on the show. I'll have a conversation with you on it. And I will explain to you that the more people that are involved in your hobby, the more gaming can grow and the more of the games you get that you want as well. More
Mhm.
people in the hobby means more dollars for the hobby. And more dollars for the hobby means you're going to
Exactly.
get more of those Dude Bro Mountain Dew Dorito Pope games that you like so much. And I understand that there can be some I understand there can be some apprehension at the fact that some of your vaunted AAA games, like I think you had put a video out of a potato being who was screaming about pronouns in your video, a
Yes.
strange
The whole
potato man.
Starfield situation. Yep.
And what I would tell you is that is not new for Bethesda, and it's not new for gaming. So to kind of
Mhm.
get on a little bit of a high horse here, um, I was present for pretty much the dawn of gaming. I'm not quite up there with Paul Gale, but I was pretty close. And what I would ask these people who want to gatekeep the hobby in is I would ask them who Danielle Bunton is. Um, I would ask them if they know who programmed a game called King's Quest. Do you happen to know who programmed King's Quest?
I do not.
Her name was Roberta Lynn Williams, and
But,
she programmed one of the first um, computer games that was extremely popular in terms of point and click adventure games. Danielle Bunton is a trans woman who made Mule, one of the games that directly inspired Sid Meier, the likes of Sid Meier and Richard Garriott. Sid Meier would go on to make Pirates and Civilization. Richard Garriott made fucking Ultima, directly inspired. Ultima 3 has NPCs that are non binary NPCs in 1983.
mhm.
So, this is an old man that's here to tell this potato being that there is nothing new under the sun. It's all
Yep.
been done before. What you are screaming in outrage about now has been in this hobby the entire time. These people have always been here. These people have always been part of this hobby. It
Mhm.
was only in the 1990s and the late 80s when there was an ad blitz specifically designed to sell consoles to young boys that all of this changed.
And I feel like that definitely hit because when I was younger, I'm not gonna lie, I kind of fell into that narrative like, well, gaming isn't really for girls or women because it kind of was. advertised that
The
way.
marketing was fucking oppressive, man.
Yeah, like, I didn't feel like a space where I could like, "Should I even be here?" And it's still working, it's still we're working on it for sure. Like, for cozy gaming, for example, it's predominantly young women or women who are in this space, but it's honestly a safe space for women who just feel like, well, gaming hasn't been really advertised for me, or there haven't really been
Sure.
games that are for me,
Yeah,
and being able
absolutely.
and they can start from there, and they can start from cozy gaming and branch out to like, "Ooh, well, what about this, Diablo 4? This looks kinda interesting," or even Baldur's Gate 3, which is popping off with people who don't even, like, play games like that or, like, interested into that genre. And again, like you said, the more people who get onto it, the more games that we can play as gamers.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it's not a bad thing.
Yeah, we're
By
not
you gatekeeping it,
yeah,
you're
we're not
just
yeah,
limiting
yeah,
yourselves.
by gatekeeping here's the thing, like by gatekeeping you're not preserving something, you're literally stifling your hobby's growth.
Mhm.
And again, these people have always been part of the games industry. These people have always been the customers of the games industry.
Mhm.
And whether you like it or not, they always will be.
Yep.
We mentioned Bethesda specifically because I know one of the retorts would be, well, like a common retort or rebuttal to this would be, well, you got to remember that we're talking about Bethesda here. Bethesda wasn't like that before. Yeah, go look up the deep lore of Vivek. Go look up Vivek. Go look up Endorial Nerevar and Dagoth Ur. Just type that in. Just type that Endorial Nerevar and Dagoth Ur, and tell me what you see in terms of fan fiction. Okay. And tell me what you see. Tell me what Michael Kirkbride, the writer of Morrowind, will tell you about the relationship between Endorial Nerevar, the first era Dunmer hero, and Dagoth Ur, the main villain of the game. It goes a little bit deeper than a friendship, guy. And that was a
Well,
Bethesda game. That was a Bethesda game. Vivek.
probably went over a lot of people's heads.
Vivek has qualities of both male and female. Vivek is a
Mhm.
god. This makes sense. He's a god in the Rudrick tradition. Um, so Bethesda, this is not new to Bethesda either. And again, I'm not. This isn't to plant some moral flag. This is simply to tell you that you're not correct. You're
Mhm.
not correct in what you're doing. So if anybody wants to talk, I'm willing to have anybody on. I would like to hear alternative perspectives, but um, I'm specifically not inviting the potato one because I know specifically after kind of looking into that particular guy that he did that
Yeah.
for clicks. He did that for
Abs
fucking
I
clicks.
hope so, because
There's no way. There's no. Oh, Feji, there's no way
like,
he actually
it
believes that shit. But it
I
doesn't
mean,
matter.
there's yeah.
But it doesn't matter because there are people that do, and they're his
Mhm.
viewers, and they just need to know the guy's full of shit, and he knows
Yes,
he's full of shit,
absolutely.
and you're being lied to. Go look. If Bethesda's never done it before, then why am I playing a game right now, the Elder Scrolls 3 Morrowind, that it's all over the fucking place in 2001? So, yeah. So that's all I wanted to say about that. I just wanted to kind of throw my hat in the ring there because I think you brought up an excellent point, and I look forward to seeing gaming grow, and I look forward
Yes.
to seeing the customers smash those gates down.
Yes, absolutely. Break those ceilings.
100%. It's just going to benefit us too. Because here's the thing: we're still gonna get our Dude Bro games. I promise you. We're gonna get more of the Dude Bro games. We're gonna get more of them because there's more money. And just like what happened in the Wii, that's literally what happened to the Wii, guys. They literally took all of the so-called casual dollars and they said, we'll make casual games, we'll throw them on the Wii, and then whatever money we get, we'll put them into Dude Bro games. That's what happened. So I promise we're gonna be okay with the Dude Bro games. I promise you. And I look forward to those too. I fucking love Dude Bro games. I am a Dude Bro. But we're gonna get plenty. We're gonna get plenty of them, and they're gonna be better quality because there's gonna be more fucking money to fund them. So don't open the gates. Open the gates. It's okay. So Mandy's in the house. Hey, what's going on, Mandy? Glad
Hi,
you could join us here
Mandy.
for the last legs here. I always give the opportunity. And Viral Eye says Vivek is life, literally, 100%. And we're gonna meet Lord Vivek. It's gonna be probably a year and a half away from meeting that fucking guy, given the rate of my glacial streaming. But we're gonna meet Vivek for sure, and we're gonna meet Dagoth Ur, and it's gonna be an epic encounter. to stand before my former friend in another life and have that conversation. And I can't wait. I can't wait to share that with all of you. But in the meantime, I've been asking a lot of questions, and I always like to give my guests time to ask their own questions of me. So, is there anything that's been burning in your head as far as anything you want to ask me in particular? And I'll kind of give a lightning round to myself here.
Okay. What are your top 5 games you played this year?
Top
I'm
5 games
curious.
this year.
Yep.
We're talking games I haven't replayed, so Morrowind doesn't count or anything.
I'd say new. What are
New
new
games.
to you that
Okay.
you
Number 5 would probably be Metroid Prime.
Nice.
New game to me. Again, it's not a port to me. Number 4 would probably be I would probably put number 4 as A Space for the Unbound. I've really enjoyed that so far. Number 3 would be Captain Toad Treasure Tracker.
Ooh.
Number 2 would be Fear and Hunger. And number 1 would be Baldur's Gate 3 / Zelda Tears of the King.
Ooh, okay. Good
Now,
choices.
now
Good
keep in
choices.
mind that's going to change because
There's so
one of
many
the
games coming out.
I'm going to knock one of them off because Mario Wonder's probably going to be number 1.
Ooh.
You have no idea how excited I am for Mario Wonder. No idea. That is the first actual, or as I like to call it, Feji, Super Mario Brothers 5.
Super Mario Bros. 5, the 5th entry.
Yep.
It looks good though. It looks really good
It
though.
looks really good. It looks really good. It looks incredible. Top 5. It's been a year, all right. Yeah, Paul. It's been an incredible year.
This year and even going into
Holy
next
shit.
year. There's
Um,
too much.
So OJ put out a topic saying he thinks this might be the best year in gaming, and I kind of argued with him a little bit on that, just because in terms of quality, I think there's a case to be made for 2023. I do. In terms of the sheer amount of new game genres being birthed, it's got to be 1992 or 1994 to me.
Mm. What were the
1992. Um, Let me see if I can pull that up real quick. Give me 1 second, because I don't want to speak out of turn here. I'm plenty drunk at this point. Um, so we want to put 1992. I've got this in my research doc, so bear with me and I'll get it pulled up. Yeah, I call it the year of the cartridge.
the year of the cartridge? I love that. That'd be a good
Um,
video topic.
yeah, that would be a good video topic. I'm just too
Should
fucking
do it.
lazy, and I should do it. But have you seen my videos, Veggie? Like
You're
I
doing great. You're doing
what
great.
is editing?
No,
uh,
when I started my channel, I had no editing experience whatsoever. It's all
I
been
still
a
don't.
learning curve. So, but it's been
Um,
great. It's all learning experience. We're all learning.
so Super Game Boy came out that year. And that's what I
Ooh.
always say is like it changed. It allowed gamers to have the Switch lifestyle before the Switch even existed. So the Game Boy
Mhm.
basically was the Switch with a Super Game Boy. Donkey Kong 94 was 1994. Sorry, 1994. This is Wario's Woods, Sonic the Hedgehog 3, and Sonic and Knuckles,
Ooh.
Super Metroid, Mega Man X, Donkey Kong,
Dang.
Earthbound,
Okay.
Final Fantasy 6.
The very coveted.
XCOM UFO Defense, Magic Carpet, Elder Scrolls Arena, Doom 2, Heretic from the publishers of Doom, Marathon, Wing Commander 3, baby.
Damn. That is pretty
Arma-
loaded.
Armada, Pagan, which was Ultima 8, System Shock, Theme Park, which was the birth of a new genre, Master of Magic, Warcraft, Orcs versus Humans. So that's 1994. The only year that seriously challenges it to me was 1992, which brought us the following: Star Control 2, Ultima Underworld, Ultima 7. Can you fucking imagine for a second, chat? Can you imagine that we had a year where Star Control 2 and Ultima 7 came out the same goddamn year? Literally two of the greatest games of all time. Same year,
Okay.
1992. Two games that still do things that no other games have still been able to do in 1992. Wolfenstein 3D by the indie studio at the time known as id Software. Dune 2, Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, Soul Blazer, Super Mario Kart, new genre. Turtles in Time, Contra 3, The Alien Wars, Sonic the Hedgehog 2, Super Mario Land 2, Six Golden Coins, Kirby's Dream Land, Super Bowl, Mega Man 5, Air Zonk. This just the level of quality. Shining Force, Shining Force 1 USA release date was also 1992. Yeah, 100%. Viral Life says, my tops this year are Dread and Mountain Blade 2. I've heard good shit about Mountain Blade 2, like, for sure. 100%. Old Smash is better than New Smash. Now, when you say Old Smash, what are we talking about here, Viral?
Like
Because
Melee,
I'm
also,
guessing
like,
he's talking Melee. Yeah, that's the one everybody
probably. Everyone loves that
Yeah,
one.
everybody loves the mechanics of Melee, but man, it's hard to argue against, what is it, like 100 fucking fighters?
There's so many fighters.
Stages?
I'm really curious as to what Nintendo's gonna do for, like, their next iteration. Because, like, who else? I
Melee,
mean,
yep.
there's still, I mean, there could be more people that they wanted, because I know Sora was the last one. I know everyone was wanting a Master Chief and all this jazz, but, like, that's a pretty beefy lineup.
Holy shit, yeah, like, for sure. There's two franchises that I honestly don't know how the fuck they're gonna top them. It's Smash Brothers Ultimate and it's Mario Kart 8.
Yep.
Like,
Like, how where did they go from there?
I don't know
Where?
I don't know where the fuck they go. I don't. I do know if anybody can figure it out, it's Nintendo.
Yeah, they'll figure it away, but, like, I wouldn't be mad if they just, because, like, with Mario Kart now, with the what, 24, is it 24 ga like,
We got a new game. To
yeah,
put it,
it's a new
we
game.
got a brand new game in the old game is what we got, because I think it's like 56 or 52 tracks it ships with, and
Yep.
it's almost doubled the amount of tracks, almost doubled it. It's
Like,
insane.
it's hard to beat.
It,
Like, I
it,
know they're probably, like, scratching their heads, "Okay, what do we do now?"
so yeah, Melee Ultimate has a ton of fighters, but the controls are so loose. Yeah, and
Mm.
then Belmont, because Castlevania is his jam. He says Melee's great, but Melee doesn't have Castlevania stuff in it. So there's the rebuttal to that. And he's like, I just like how quick they used to be, and I get that, man. I get that 100%. So yeah, that would be my top 5 games. Any other questions for me?
So what game, like, made you fall in love with gaming? There
Super
has to be that
Mario
one
Brothers.
game. Yep.
Super Mario Brothers. And a story behind that. I hope to have one of these days, if I can get him to figure out how to use fucking Discord, I'm gonna have my dad on to talk gaming with.
Aw.
I think that'll be a wonderful thing. And basically talk about Shadows of the Empire on the 64. We shared the Sonic games. We shared, but
Aw.
my first experience in this hobby was playing. I got a box. I got a hand me down. I've told this story probably a million times, but I'll tell it again because it's a good story. I got a hand me down box. It was an NES box that Dad brought home with Excite Bike, Zelda, Zelda 2, Contra, Super C. It had um, Mario 1 and Duck Hunt. Didn't have Mario 3. But it had Mario 1 and Duck Hunt. It had Defender 2, the arcade port. And I started my gaming career basically playing Super Mario Brothers as Luigi, because at the time Mario had a different type of multiplayer. It was one player at a time. The first player would
Mhm.
go, and then when they died, the second player would go, starting from World 1-1. And so essentially the two
Oh,
player was a race. We weren't both on the screen at the same time. And so I learned how to play
interesting.
video games by watching what my dad did in terms of making the
Mhm.
choices in Mario Brothers. I watched him, and then I would try to emulate his movements in the game. And that's how I learned how to play video games. That was my first video game experience. And if you think about it, like, Mario is actually an open ear game, like, literally. Um, Look at the choices, and that's what I want to get back to. Mario anymore is much more streamlined affair, but in the original Mario, let's look. You have a Goomba approaches. Mario can do the following. Mario can smash the Goomba and move on. Mario can dodge the Goomba by jumping over him. Mario can get a fire flower and spike the Goomba with a fire flower. Mario can go
Mhm.
down a pipe and go to a whole different area. Mario can jump above the Goomba and completely skip him entirely. There is so many choices that go into
Right.
every decision in Super Mario Brothers. And it's part of why it's a bona fide classic, but it's part of what just seeing the open sky, which was huge at that time. Seeing the way the game felt like an adventure. The game would start in one place, and the next level would begin right where you started off, like a genuine fucking adventure. Um,
Right.
there was so much the fact that it was literally steeped in literary nonsense genre. So you have Gulliver's Travels, Arabian Nights. You've got Alice in Wonderland, of course, Wizard of Oz. And the fact that Mario Wonder is literally a homage to its original literary nonsense roots just just warms my dead old heart in ways you can't even. Mario 2 felt like an actual acid trip. Yeah, it's based on the Arabian Nights. It's based on the Arabian Nights stories. Literally. That's the literary inspiration they drew from. Jack and the Beanstalk, Alice in Wonderland with the eating of the mushrooms and growing larger and stronger. Um,
Yep.
the Bowser, the Jabberwocky. There's so many different literary parallels to the literary nonsense world of Alice in Wonderland. Gulliver's Travels, where Gulliver travels to these different realms, each stranger than the last. That's Mario Brothers 3. The airships and the palace in the sky, and um, there's just so much to it. Again, that's one of the things I love to do. Is I'm a fan of ludology, which is a studying of where game inspiration comes from, the study of game development itself. And Miyamoto drew inspiration from Mario from the literary nonsense fairy tales he read as a kid. And he drew Zelda from legends such as King Arthur. Zelda 2 was Nintendo's version of Sleeping Beauty. It was like a Japanese take on Sleeping Beauty. Sword in the Stone with the original Zelda Link to the Past. Um, it's always a world in peril that's already fallen to darkness and evil. Bowser felt much more evil at that time. Bowser was a genuine threat. He was not only a dragon, he was a dark wizard who turned all the Goombas into or not Goombas, but toads into blocks. And so every time you broke a block, you were killing a fucking toad. That's
Oh my
another thing.
god, that's
That's in the
bleak.
manual. That's in the
That is
manual.
bleak.
Mario came Peter Pan, 100% Peter Pan, 100%.
Dang.
100% Peter Pan. And so I love Mario. That's the game that made me fall in love with and made me kind of a lifelong denizen of this space known as gaming. Um, any other questions?
I mean, that's pretty much it. I just know that you are such a very well knowledgeable person when it comes to gaming. If I need anything,
I
you
try.
got it, dude.
We've all read different books. That's the thing. So what I always tell people, and again, it's not just trying to be humble. It's we've all read different books. We've all come from different experiences, and
Hmm.
that's why I like meeting people. It's part of what also spurred this hobby. You know, and Jay from Cold Nights did his podcast, and that's how I actually ran it. That's how I actually met and fell in love with a lot of you guys' channels. And I said, hey, you know, I'm pretty amicable once I get some booze in me. I think I can do this too. So I'm gonna jump into that too. That sounds like a fucking blast.
And
Um,
you're doing a great job.
so yeah, I appreciate it. I always like that. Um, but I always like to give a shout out to Jay too. Like I was telling Mad Belmont, that guy should be like the fucking Mr. Beast of the gaming space by now, man. This
Yes.
fucking criminal that he's not 250 million fucking subs. But again,
I know.
that's my bias talking, I'm sure. Um, other than that, I guess I do have one last question for you. We're gonna have you on for a round two. We got so much more to talk about. I want to know about that
Yes.
bookshelf. I want to know about that bookshelf, but we're gonna
My
we
bookshelf
ran
here.
we ran pretty late. We might maybe get to that another time.
Yes.
For sure. So my one last question for you is the question I like to ask everyone. Veggie, did you have fun?
I did. I had honestly a great time being able to like talk about this. I love games, and in real life, not many of my friends are into gaming as much as I am. So it's honestly really great to just sit down and
Yeah,
really talk and geek out about things that we love. So again, thank you so much for having me, and I would love to be on another episode.
100% will be. And um, because I'm starting to do my round twos already. There's some folks that are already starting their round twos. So definitely going to be having pretty much everybody who's already been on will be on again, just because there's always so much to talk about. And yeah,
For
I'm
sure.
the same way. I come from a real stuffy boardroom style environment at work. None of them fucking guys play video games. They're all twice as old as me. Most of them they don't play fucking games.
Yeah.
So
Like,
this is
"What?"
this is also my outlet too. I get to come here, shoot the shit with a bunch of people who love the same stuff I do.
Mhm.
And at the end of the day, what are we if not a community? And that's if there's one thing
Right.
Jay's instilled in me, it's that. Because before I never really looked at it that way. I actually have a pretty lengthy internet history. I've ghosted. You wouldn't know how many fucking YouTube
Oh,
or writing efforts
no.
I've ghosted and just wiped out. And it's because I'm terrified of success. Honestly, like there's a concept called Dunbar's number. Are you familiar with that?
Hmm.
So now the chat's going to take a shot because of that, because I mentioned Dunbar's
Okay.
number. But Dunbar's number is as sociologist Robin Dunbar theorized that there is a certain cognitive limitation where we stop being able to keep track of our relationships around us.
Yeah.
He put that number in about there's Mandy. Dunbar's number, take a shot. So essentially, he pegged the number at 150. It's arguable whether it's 1,000. Some people say it's less than 150. But essentially, there is a cognitive upper limit to how many relationships we can keep track of, and it gets real fucking hazy after that. I pair this with another thing. I call it the anti-civilization equation, actually. And what the anti-civilization equation is this: you pair Dunbar's number with Ashby's law of requisite variety, which states that in order for a system to maintain homeostasis, it must have more controlling variables. It must have more control mechanisms than the variables it is attempting to control for.
Mm.
If you don't have that, then the collapse of that system is inevitable. Now, what does that sound like to you? That sounds like literally everything we've ever fucking built ever. It is an
Yep.
anti-civilization equation. It is a complete debunk of bureaucracy, is what that is. So, and everything we build is a bureaucracy. It's literally we're social creatures, and that's what we build. But the problem is that you have to have one controlling mechanism. So, for example, I live in a town of about 120,000 people. We have a city council. That city council has 10 people on it, and there's a mayor, so it's 11 fucking people to represent
Yep.
116 to 120,000. There are problems,
Yep.
and
I
and
can
I
only
can promise you,
imagine.
every city has the same problems, because really, if you think about Dunbar's number being 150, or fuck it, let's even say it's 1,000. Well, um, you're not able to give those people the care they deserve. You're not able to make decisions for those people. You don't even fucking care about most of those people. And it's the same thing with
Mhm.
a YouTube channel, honestly. And so that was always my fear. But because of Jay's community, I've actually stuck it past that 150 number. I haven't imploded it, and I won't this time, because I love y'all so fucking much. You guys are cool to interact with. So I'm here for the long haul, come whatever may, and I know it's going to end badly. That's the thing; it's going to.
Yeah,
But
you don't know. You don't
I
know.
don't, and that's where the optimism comes in, and that's why I like people like you, Jay, Mandy, endless optimists. But everything is ephemeral. Everything ultimately falls apart. Everything ultimately collapses. But what I've learned is that you can meet some amazing people in that time, and you can have a fucking blast before it happens.
Yeah.
So, I guess we'll on that happy note. I guess we will take a one last look at the comments here. So we've got Super Mario 2 felt like an actual acid trip, 100%, bro. Viral Life says, I love this guy. Love you too, man. Love you too. Nothing but love. Dunbar's number, take a shot, man. We already did. And it sounds like oiling an engine. You can oil an engine, but if you've only got an ounce of oil for an engine that takes 16 ounces, the engine will collapse. That's kind of the problem. And I look at that, and funnily enough, I just gave everybody kind of a strange, fucked up view into my own worldview, which is hilarious. Which is that everything falls apart in the end. Everything is ephemeral. And Tony says in the end, it's going to be Zoo and I facing off with swords on a bridge in a thunderstorm. That would be fucking epic. What a way to
Doing
go if
it.
that was the case. And Tony, you're gonna. That's the one talk. Like, you and Mandy are gonna have to come on. I was telling Mandy that in the not Morrowind stream last night, where I said we're gonna have to talk philosophy, and the goal is for Mandy to get a word in edgewise. 100%. And with bloody tears from Castlevania blaring in the background as you fight, it's going to be incredible. And somebody's mind. That's what's amazing is it's okay to be wrong, guys. It's okay to be wrong. Somebody
That
is going to
part.
be it's a dialectic. It's a dialectic, and so somebody will change. Tony's smart enough, and I'm smart enough where somebody's mind's going to be changed in that. And in that change, there will be a synthesis. So just like in dialectical struggle, there is a thesis and an antithesis, and when they come together for a synthesis, the strengths of both, the weaknesses of neither. And that's honestly how ultimately just about every concept, whether it's an invention, whether it's a civilization, whether it's a community, that's how they grow and that's how they change. And so it's in both ways, it is both dire and it is fascinating and it is fucking beautiful also. So
Well said.
on that, I guess we had more than enough fun and booze for tonight. The Kharkov hasn't killed me yet. Tomorrow's gonna be a bitch.
It's like, oh, why did
It,
I
it,
do
it, it
that?
was it was worth it. It was worth it to drink like a true Pole or a true Russian tonight. Yeah, Kamen, my friend Kamen would be proud of me. Kharkov is king, my friend. If I know you're not listening to this because you're a violinist, you don't even know what a fucking video game is, but I will definitely share this story in person with you, and I think you'll appreciate the fact that I drank more than my share of Kharkov tonight. So on that note, I'm going to go ahead and kick the chat out. If you want to stay on for a little bit of a debrief, we'll talk a little bit privately. But chat, I love you all. So game on and get out of here, and maybe later on tune in for something else. Maybe. Talk to you later, guys.
Bye.